Well, hello and welcome back to season 2 of Box Office Girl and Audience Booked By. Thank you so much for joining us again, and it's a thrill to be here, I have to say, and even more of a thrill because at last I'm able to welcome the wonderful, absolutely talented and marvelous character that is Drew Gummerson. Drew, welcome to the show.
Morning, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's good to see you. The reason that we're even talking is, I will say very quickly, because of this wonderful book that you wrote, 7 Nights at the Flamingo Hotel, which was published by Bearded Badger Publishing, who I interviewed in series 1. He's an independent publisher, but your journey did not start here.
No, that's my third published book, but probably the 12th I've written. I don't know. I've written a lot that haven't been published.
Yeah. So you did way back in the beginning. You've always been writing, and you did actually find an agent at one point.
Yeah, I started writing. I always wanted to do it from when I was a baby. My parents had a pub with lots of old books around. I used to pick them up and pretend I could read them to the customers and tell them stories from these books. So I always said I wanted to do it, and I finally started properly back in, I don't know, about 1998, 90, something like that. I'd been living in Australia. I'd had one of those visas and worked there, and I split up with my partner actually, and he said I was going to write a book, and he said, "Oh, you'll never write a book." So I thought, well, that's it. I'm going to do it now. So I got home and put pen to paper. Literally, I've started. The first book I wrote was, I think it was handwritten. I think it was about 250,000 words or something. I just put in every single story I could think of, just because I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And then got to the end, realised I did try to get that published, to unsurprisingly rejections. But then I thought, I'll just need to write something simple. Now I know I can do it. So I ended up writing The Lodger, which was a very simple story that a gay man has a straight lodger come to live with him, and then the lodger says he's murdered somebody. It's kind of an armchair detective story. They don't really go out of the house. It's just lots of chatting and watching television. And yeah, off the back of that, a few years later, I managed to get an agent. That's quite a long story, but I'd seen in the Sunday papers about, I think it was Jenny Colgan. She'd managed to get a £1 million deal for her first book, and she'd worked for the NHS, and she was funny. And I thought, oh yeah, I don't work for the NHS, but I thought I'll try and write stuff that's
I'd like to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote to her agent, who was I can't remember her name now, but I wrote to her, and she actually worked for one of the prestigious mega agencies. So I went through about 7 different interns, and they kept saying they liked it, and then they'd suggest changes, and then it came back eventually after it was on for months, and I rewrote some of it, and eventually it went to the super agent, and she wrote me a nice letter or email, I think. No, I can't remember now, but anyway, she got back to me and said it wasn't for her. She passed it on to her colleague, and it wasn't for him either, and that was it. And then I split up with another partner, and I moved out into rented accommodation. I didn't even have a computer or any money to buy one, so I kind of stopped writing. But then out of the blue, I could check my emails and went to the gym. An American coffee shop emailed me and said they'd read one of my 50-word stories online, and they were doing a 50-word 50-bean coffee promotion, and would I write some more? So I thought, yeah, definitely. So I wrote about 10 of these 50-word stories for this American coffee shop, and unbelievably, they paid me $1,000, which I used to buy a computer.
Wow.
So I think that was my first computer. And then I got my new computer, and I was a bit drunk, and I thought, oh, I've got this manuscript from a year ago that is still sitting on a file somewhere. Why don't I try and send it off? So this was back in 2006. So a lot of submissions then were still paper, but I thought I didn't have a printer, I didn't have the money to print stuff off. So I just thought, I'm going to Google agents that have email addresses. So I found about 4, emailed one got back to me in a day. And she was really excited. Have you sent this to anybody else? Who else are you talking to? Come down to London to meet them. So I did, and then she took me on, and she was very, how much do you earn? Oh, I can get you more than that. We'll
The whole package.
you can get, yeah. You can give up working. You'll be a writer. We really love you. And she did manage to get me a deal with Jonathan Cape, which is a really prestigious publisher, because it's part of, well, then it was part of Random House, but now it's part of Penguin Random House. And the publisher there was the person that discovered Roddy Doyle off the slush pile, and so he compared me to Roddy Doyle, and that was in the bookseller, and I thought it was going to be the next big thing. But the book came out, but unfortunately it didn't sell that well, or didn't get that well reviewed, and so I wrote a few more books for the agent. But after, I think I was trying to write a thriller or something that probably wasn't me, and after 3 more attempts at books with her, she just kind of said, I think we need to part company. So so that was my shot at stardom, and it was nice while it lasted. But
yeah, but you had a taste of that. What was the book called that got this agent?
Oh, that was Me and Mickey James.
Me and Mickey James, which is a great title. I mean, that's I can understand why. Yeah.
The agent thought of the title, actually. It was called Down by Law, because I'm a big fan of Jim Jarmusch, who's the director. One of his films is called Down by Law, and the band Me and Mickey James is about a pop group. They're a pop duo, and the band's called Down by Law. And one of them, the keyboardist, has a hunchback. I wrote that because if you're gay, it's always like through the gay person at work, or the gay person, or my gay friend. So I wanted to write a book where the word gay isn't mentioned, and that's nothing to do with the story, but they're a loving gay couple. And I wanted to give him a hunchback, just because that would be a uniquely defining thing about him. So people would say, oh, this is a book about hunchback, maybe, rather than a book about being gay.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I was reading about a little book, I can't remember the person's name now, which is bad. I was reading it last night about Schitt's Creek, which it said it was the same thing, that they created a town where prejudice didn't exist, and everybody just accepted the people if they were pansexual, gay, bisexual. So my first book was about a gay man. The second book was about a gay couple, but not mentioning the word gay. And then Flamingo Hotel is, I think society's changed where sexuality has become a lot more fluid.
Again.
So
So
his sexuality is, I don't even know what it is. If someone asked me what his sexuality was, I wouldn't be able to say. I just wrote it kind of line by line, and he gets
He doesn't even have a name, does he?
No, he doesn't have a name.
You don't get to know his name, and it's.
I don't do names anymore.
No, you don't do names.
Sorry, me, Mickey James had a name, but me, the narrator, didn't have a name, so I went from me to you. So, as you're just going to say, it's written in the second person. So
yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping in just a little bit here, but yes, it's written in the second person. I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about this book, because I think this is the turning point for you as a writer that's been writing for 20 years. And you've held the golden chalice that comes with the agent, and the whole promise of we're going to make you a star. So you've had a taste of that, and you moved on from that, and you went through a period where you weren't writing, not writing, but you weren't publishing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I didn't want to go through the whole. I see on Twitter, which I'm on quite a lot, that people say they've sent off 50 letters, or they've got 50 things on submission, and I've never really done that. I've never really sent off a great deal. I don't know, just haven't been that. So I was writing, but I'd looked around and seen what chances there were for me to get published, and looking realistically at the kind of thing I was writing, I couldn't see any press, like a big press or an independent press, was publishing the kind of thing that Flamingo Hotel is, or although I like a lot of indie presses, I love them, but I look at what I'd written and think that doesn't fit on their list. So I could see that. So there's no point me just pushing myself forward just to be rejected. So I wrote Flamingo Hotel just with, I wanted to write something that I felt that I wanted to write without thinking I want to get this published or with any pressure on it. So I just wrote it for fun. I wrote it on my phone, on my notes, just in the morning before work, or well, on the morning of my days off. I always write in the morning. I can't write at night. And I just wrote little vignettes. Really, there were a few lines, or if you've read the books, there's lots of funny situations. Hopefully, so they weren't written in the order. So I would write about his interactions with the waiters, or there's lots of different little stories about the guests. So they would all be written. And then when I came to eventually piece it all together, I had like a huge jigsaw where I was obviously I'll split it into, it's called 7 days. So there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So there's each day. And then I looked at the vignettes and thought, do they have a theme? Are they about love? Are they about his childhood? Or so I pieced them together and then gradually edited it into one whole thing. But I should say that I wrote the first draft of it a few years ago and then ended up hating it. I think a lot of writers will say that. I don't know. They just think, oh, this is rubbish. What am I doing? I'll put it away. And then I looked at it again. I was just sitting at work on my lunch break, and I don't know why, I opened up the file and I found myself chuckling to it, and I thought, oh, this is okay actually. So then I started working on it again, and then I got to the end, and I hated it again. I thought, this is absolute rubbish. What are you doing? So then I put it away again for another 6 months, and then I have been since 2004 a member of a writing community called ABC Tales, and I decided I'd post it on there, and I went through 3 months of posting it every like 3 or 4 days, one of the episodes. I think there's about 27 different episodes in the book, I think, or something like that. So I'd post them every few days on ABC Tales, but in the meantime, because I was posting them for people to view, I was trying to ramp up the humor, and I'd been listening to short stories of an American humorist called Miranda July. She has these, in her characters, in her stories, they have these internal monologues, and so that became part of Flamingo Hotel, where he describes a situation and then he described the situation that he imagined it would be, and then he describes another situation where it all goes wrong, and then he describes the reality. So there's different levels of the same thing, which is what she does. All in his own head, all at the same time, or consecutive to each other. So I ended up rewriting it really a lot to put in all these different I don't know what they would be, different views of the same situation, and that came late in the stage. And also Flamingo Hotel, it wasn't called Flamingo Hotel. I don't know where that came from, but I'm so pleased that it did, because it looks good as an emoji. And people remember it.
It did, but let's just stay with this just for a little bit longer, because the character story, it is full of humor. It's also I know you don't particularly want to refer to the book as this, but people have reviewed the book as not one for your aging auntie, for example, because I don't know if graphic is the right word. I think it's just normal behavior that goes on behind closed doors, but it's exposed within the book. So it's kind of just, you find yourself reading and almost feel like an intruder at times on the situation that's going on. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a very human story as well. And I think when we talked before, you did sort of hint that yes, there is, as for all writers, I'm sure, there's a lot of you in this book. There's an understanding of where you've come from your background, that you've drawn on your own experiences to create maybe this character.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's described on the back as a rags to rags story. So I wanted that was important to me, that I would write something that was reflective of a genuine working class life, that there's not like I'm not giving away the ending, but he doesn't become a millionaire by the end. He's not rescued from his hotel. So I wanted to write a story where that is his life. He is a dishwasher in a hotel. He's doing a decent enough job. He's working. And that is the reality for most of us. And I think publishing is trying to be more inclusive by people of colour and working class. But for me, when I read these, they don't seem very genuine. They just seem to reflect the same paradigms of the books they're already putting out, but perhaps trying to give them a working class slant. And maybe, in my opinion, and who am I to say anything, but they seem to fail to me. They don't seem very genuine or edgy, or
so almost paying lip service, do you think? Maybe ticking a box rather than authenticity from.
I think so. I think, as I've said on Twitter, that it's almost like Hollywood realizing that their films didn't really reflect society, and so they started making things like Rebel Without a Cause to reflect rebellion, but really it's quite anodyne. And I think that's what publishing is going through at the moment, just these anodyne reflections of a different life without really getting to grips with it. And I think I've said also about working class writers, and I've seen them tweeting, what city am I going to write my next book in? Which European city am I going to decamp to produce the next great working class novel? Well, that, to me, fair enough. They've made a success of themselves, and that's brilliant. But it's not reflective of my life. I'm still getting up at 5:30 and going to work 7 days a week. So, so that was something I wanted to reflect in my book, I guess. And I like George Saunders.
Sorry, Drew, but so I mean, what you've done is you've followed the writer's dream of trying to find the agent. You found an agent. You got published. You published a few books. You parted company, which is quite a common story amongst writers for whatever reason. You know, they held it for a moment and then it was gone. And then you drifted back into the world of writing, but not publishing. And then, having run that gauntlet, you came back to the start, really, and wrote what you wanted to write. That there wasn't an expectation there. But in doing that, you created something very authentic, which you did put out there. Let's talk about a little bit about that, Paul Handley at Bearded Badger, because how did you two connect?
Yeah, so I'd been sent on ABC Tales because it had got a lot of people had read it there, and they said they really liked it, to try and get it published, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But then because I'm on Twitter, and as I've said before, I'm connected to loads of different independent publishers, and I really like their work. And then all of a sudden, Bearded Badger popped up as a new publisher opening up in Belper in Derbyshire, and I started following their socials, I think, on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And Bearded Badger is a one-man band run by Paul Handley, and he's about my age, and I don't know, similar background, but similar interests certainly. And I started talking to him on Instagram or Twitter about different books, and we found out that we liked very similar kind of writers, like Richard Brautigan, Willie Vlortin, Charles Bukowski. And so when I saw that Bearded Badger were open for submissions, I was I'd been out the night and I was hungover, and I just thought, I didn't even read it. I hadn't even, like, people talk about editing their manuscripts. Like I said a short while ago, I'd worked on it for years, and I'd worked on the individual pieces like a lot. So they were like, as you, if anyone reads it, they'll see it's all little vignettes. So I'd worked on the vignettes, but I'd never read the whole thing through. So I sent it off, not even having read it myself as a full manuscript. And then I don't know how long it was. I think Paul sent me a private message on Twitter saying that he was really enjoying it and he loved it, and it was just like a book he would read. And I thought, oh, that's nice. And then it was a few weeks later, he said that he'd like it to be their first book. So yeah, I was thrilled. And I think we were both quite nervous. I mean, he loves books and I love books, and I think when he sent it off to the printers, he wasn't sure exactly what it was going to come to look like, if it would be like a proper book, if it would be good quality. You don't know, do you? But when it came back, that's his first video when he holds the book. I love that because he looks so happy with it, and obviously I am too, because it looks great.
So you took a punt on each other, really, because he was a startup.
Definitely, yeah.
And you were,
Definitely, yeah.
It was kind of like the universe aligned for you both, and because he has championed your writing since then. But then, of course, the pandemic hit. But he, bless him, he's hung in by his fingernails and he's carried on. And he did get 2 poetry books out as well the same year. But we'll come back to that in a moment. I just wanted to go back to this this idea of the working class, not idea, as though somebody's conjured that up. They haven't. We exist, working class writers exist, and for most of us, we will toil away at our tables and nobody really will ever be aware of our work, but it doesn't make the work any less valuable, I think. And in this age where there are so many publishing options, I think you seem quite happy to be going down the independent route. I think you've become quite a champion for that, if I'm not mistaken. But so having tasted one end of the spectrum, gone through a period of not publishing at all, and now you've reached this point where you're publishing via an independent. How would you say that's changed your view, if at all, of the market for books?
Well, I think I am a good fit for an independent, and also my agent said back in the day, you're never going to be a supermarket novelist, and well, that's true. I know that I'm not. I know that I'm a gay man, and my books are a bit weird, and they, as I think another writer, Matt Cook, said, deal with uncomfortable sexual intimacies, and so I can see, looking from the outside, that I'm probably not everybody's cup of tea. So in a way, the independent works well for me because they can market themselves to a particular kind of person, because we connect to people through social media, and it's almost a direct connection rather than a big publisher putting out like a big marketing campaign that's this is the next big thriller that would appeal to everybody. But if we can make that connection through social media, people feel that they know me and Paul and what the publisher's trying to achieve. And also, I think it helps that you have to buy it direct from the website or through a few independent publishers. They can champion your work rather than, I think, if I had one copy of my book in Waterstones sitting on the shelf, no one's going to pick it up, or why would they? There's hundreds of books in there. Why would they choose me? They wouldn't have heard of me. So I think it works well. There's this authentic connection between me and the readers. And I mean, from having, a decent amount of sales, but not millions, but we've seemed to have gathered a lot of comments, and it seems to have made that connection with people, like in terms of there's been lots of reviews and lots of people have said things about it. And it seems to, well, I'm really pleased that it's not just before in the reviews that I did have, it was always a gentle humor, but this time people seem to have connected with the what's the words on the back, the debauchery and doom. So yeah, I think they've got that it's more, perhaps when this book is more heartfelt, and like you said before, a lot of the things in there, it's not an autobiography, but it's as close as I'll come to doing an autobiography of all the horrific things that have happened and trying to make them funny.
Well, I think it's a brave book. As I said, I think it's very human. I keep hearing this, you keep saying I'm a gay man, how would I fit in? But actually what you are is a writer. Before anything else, and before that, we are human. Before
I never feel brave.
Don't you not?
The very first, no, the very first book that I wrote, The Lodger, the editor there at GMP, it was Gay Men's Press, she said, "Oh, it's a very brave." What is it? God, I don't feel brave. I always think you're brave by not doing something, because I think that's a brave thing, not to put yourself out there, to live your whole life and then get to the end and think, I didn't really try, I didn't put myself out there. I think that's brave to me doing it. I think it's not brave to do it. I think, because otherwise you would just look back and think that you'd been a failure.
Oh, okay. That's a very different perspective, I think, to what perhaps a lot of people might see as.
Yeah, I think
But
so.
it does. Having said that, talking to you and getting to know you, it kind of fits with your perspective on the world, if I'm honest, and just adds to the authenticity of who you are and what you're about. And you're saying, you know what, this is me, take it or leave it. This is my work, and I'll leave it here for you. But actually, I've moved on to the next thing, and you did move on to the next thing because this went to a second print. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I
And
did. Yeah, really.
who knows from there? And you've now brought out a shorter book, but almost like a introduction to this. So it's a nice link and quite a fast turnaround with that. Do you want to just tell us very quickly about that?
Yeah, so I don't know where it came from, but I was in bed one morning. I was wake up early. It was 5 o'clock, and I started writing again in the character's voice from Flamingo Hotel. As we said, it's written as you. So I started writing about how you, the character, came about to be published. So the new book, chapbook, it's 28 pages, but it's the story of how the character in the Flamingo Hotel became a writer. Because in the Flamingo Hotel, he talks a lot about writing, and when he's in, he talks about trying to be a writer in the Flamingo Hotel when he's in New York, and he's trying to be a short story writer, and it all goes horribly wrong. Yeah, so I wrote this book. So it's I don't know how to describe it. It's just a book on writing, but in a humorous way. But again, it came from the reality of my life. I think the meeting with the agent in You, the book from Pista Publication, it's called. But the meeting with the agent, obviously, I've ramped it up and it's funny in that. But that was the genuine thing. My agent lived in Westminster, and I went down there to see her, and it was she had a dog. If you read You from Pista Publication, you'll see what happens. But what I write in there isn't true, but it's only based on how I felt. And I think, yeah. So I wrote it and I put it on ABC Tales, where everything goes that I write. And Paul just happened to see it, or I tweeted it, so he probably read it. Well, he would have read it. And then he just sent me an email saying, "Do you fancy doing this as a chapbook?" And he'd already done the PDF for it. And I was like, "Yeah, definitely, why not?" So this one wasn't submitted. So, well, from 2 months ago I wrote it, and now it's out there, and it would have been quicker, except there were problems at the printers with COVID and the stuff. So it's a really quick turnaround, and it's a book that I didn't even submit. And going back to Flamingo, that was never rejected by a publisher either, and that's unusual. I only sent it to 3, but Paul accepted it, and then I just cancelled the other 2. I said I've managed to find a publisher. So You from Pista Publication came out last week or the week before, and it's available now it's just a £5, and it's hopefully it's an extension to the Flamingo Hotel.
Well,
and it's about writing.
I can see me ordering that actually, because this will go down as one of my classic reads, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Credit where credit is due. But we're just coming into the last few minutes now. So awful question. I hate asking it, but I suppose we all do, because we're talking about writing, and people who are interested in writing and also in reading will probably be checking in here at some point. So any advice? What would your advice be in terms of the integrity of reading and writing, and obviously the market, etc.? What are your thoughts?
Like I said, it's an awful question, because back in the day, I used to tell people that, "Oh, this is what you need to do," but now I've realised you have to follow your own path. Really, you have to be true to yourself, and there's nothing wrong with commercial fiction or churning out these books if you want to do it for 99p on Kindle. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, my path perhaps was to be true to myself and authentic, and just be the best that you can. I think I've mentioned it before, but Nick Hornby gives really good advice to read above yourself. And I think he means if you read people that you think you can never be as good as, because then you will get better. And also don't give up, because although I've probably, I don't know if I've put a positive spin on the 20 years, but it's taken me 20 years now to accept that I'm a success, because I went through a lot of, not dark times. I didn't really talk about it. When I lost my agent, I didn't mention it to anybody. I didn't talk about it. I didn't even tell my partner. It was just something that I think Edgar Kerrett, he's a Israeli writer. He said that he's quite, well, he's a famous short story writer, but he said I had writer's block for 10 years and nobody noticed. So I think Nick Hornby said that you'll find all your friends haven't even read your books. So it's almost been you can be incognito as a writer. You don't need to talk about it. But anyway, as I was saying, now 20 years down the track, I do feel a success and I feel proud of myself. And it's taken me all that time to accept that I've now had 3 books published by 3 different publishers. So I've gone through that process of people finding me, not knowing anything about me, not publishing me because my previous book was a success. So more the opposite. So yeah, so just be true to yourself and don't give up and carry on. And success is relative. It's not all about massive sales. You might find that that's not your path.
But it's about fulfilling your own need to create, I suppose. I mean, I think you said when we were talking before, and you've said it actually, aspire to be better than you are. And I think that's something we can all take a lesson from, to be fair. Drew, it's I could listen to you for much longer than we have time for. Maybe you can come back in another couple of years when you've got a few more under your belt, or even if you haven't got a few more under your belt, because I think what's come out of this interview more than anything is the reality of the situation that so many people find themselves in, like this guy. It is a rags to rags, and there's only so many people who will reach the heights of celebrity, and the rest of us can just hope to achieve something on a daily basis that we can go to bed and sleep well and think, you know what, I got through the day. And for today, that was enough. So thank you so much for your time, for your conversation. It's been very informative. I've really enjoyed it. I'll just say a quick note to anybody checking in. Thanks again for joining us. Season 2 already, episode 1, and we have Drew here. Next time, with a bit of luck, I will be speaking with psychological crime writer Jenny O'Brien. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Thanks again to Drew, and we'll see you next time. Take care.